the most important, most difficult part of being a marketing agency is communicating with clients. And so it's collaborating, communicating.
So, welcome to How I Got the Job, guys. I'm Vindhya, your host, and today we have Eric Huberman. He is the founder of Hawke Media, which is one of the fastest growing marketing agencies in the US. He's been listed in the 30 under 30 Forbes and GQ's 40 under 40, and Hawke Media has been listed among the top 25 organizations and the best places to work in Southern California. But as they say, there's a story that goes behind every success. I'm sure Hawke Media also has a story. And today we are going to know the story of Hawke Media from the founder and CEO himself. So, welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, first things first, like when did Hawke Media happen and how did it all start?
Yeah, I had built and sold to e-commerce companies. This was in 2013. I sold my last company and I started advising and consulting for a lot of brands that wanted to know how I did it, how I grew these businesses. And through helping them, I kept finding that at least here, immediately in front of me, it was really hard to find great marketing people to help these companies grow, whether it was agencies or individuals. It's really expensive to hire a good agency. It's really a lot of them the best agencies will only work with bigger companies. And so you end up going through the other agencies, like 99% of agencies that aren't very good, that never figure out a way to grow themselves. And they might be affordable, but they're not good at what they do. And so I started to get frustrated and came up with this idea of creating accessibility to great marketing. The idea being, let's be the best at what we do in marketing. Let's build an incredible team, but let's keep it easy to work with. Let's keep it month to month, a la carte, nimble, flexible, and just, a low barrier to entry for people that really need marketing help. And so that's what we set off to do. And that's how we started building.
That's lovely. Can you like give me a number as to what age you were when you started out the agency?
Yeah. So I was 26 when I was consulting. I turned 27 right before I started hiring people to build Hawke Media.
Okay. And how many years has it been since you started Hawke Media?
8, just turned 8.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yep.
So, like starting off back then, the internet, it wasn't quite the internet era. Social media was just coming up. So, what was essentially the role of Hawke Media? Like, what kind of clients did you all have back then?
Yeah, it was, we started with, we had some big ones, like we had HP, we had Verizon, we had Red Bull, but then we had a lot of startups. E-commerce has always been a pretty big part of what we do.
Yeah.
And social media wasn't new. So that was 2014 when we started. I was
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook, I think in 2005. So,
Okay.
but Facebook advertising didn't really kick off until I believe 2012. So,
Mm-hmm.
at any scale. So the 2013 and 14, it was still new, and a lot of big companies still weren't touching it, and small companies still hadn't figured it out. So my job was really helping a lot of companies navigate the changing digital landscape as it was changing. And now, it was, I think 2018 was the first time that digital marketing outpaced traditional marketing. So it grew really fast. But originally, helped Red Bull with their first digital influencer campaign and helped HP figure out how to run Facebook. So it was early.
That's lovely. And when it came to hiring the perfect people and the first few bunch of people at Hawk Media, how did that go? Like, what were
Yeah.
your key points that you looked into people before employing them?
Yeah, it was a great lesson. So the first group of people I hired, a lot of them were people that I just knew through building my companies and, sort of network. And so I just said, hey, I'm building this thing. Do you want to join me? It turned out that was a really bad way to hire for the most part, because they knew me as a friend. They knew me as, it wasn't like the formal way of getting a job. And so the relationship felt informal. So when it was time to, frankly, sometimes have to say, hey, we got to get to work and stuff like that, there was sort of a lack of respect there and just a lack of commitment that didn't go very well. So I'd say, after the first 6 months, we only had we literally turned over everyone we hired originally, except for one person that became my business partner. But everyone else didn't last because there wasn't really like, they didn't really know what I was building. They weren't really sure. They kind of just joined because I was a friend of theirs. And so that didn't go
Yeah.
well. And then from there, we started more of a normal standard hiring process with interviews and all that. And
Okay.
that round of people lasted a very long time.
That's lovely. Also, like initially when you all were starting out, was it a rough start or did things sail smooth and you all started getting clients from day one?
Yeah, I think it's always perspective. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything's hard in that sense. Like it's not like it went easy. We had challenges every day. That's building a business. So I wouldn't say that it was, but I would also say that like, listen, we were profitable from day one. We never raised any money, and still to this day, we have no debt. We've raised no outside capital, and that doesn't mean it's been easy. But I count my blessings more than anything. It's perspective. I can call it rough, or I can say no. It's a blessing in the way this has turned out.
Mm-hmm. And what was like your first big client, and after how many days or months into starting it, did you all bag your first big client?
Yeah, so it was kind of backwards in sense of like I left my company, I sold the company, I went on a week vacation, and then I got offered a bunch of jobs and I didn't want to take any jobs. And one of those people that was really pushing turned into my first client. So I had my first client before I started Hawke. I like
Okay.
I had my first couple clients and then went, you know what, if this scales into something, like I wasn't planning on building an agency. I was just consulting to make some money because I didn't want to take a job and wanted to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I had a couple clients and then went, you know what, if this starts to grow into something, I don't want to have it be called Huberman Consulting and everyone calling me. So I'll just name it Hawke Media just in case. And that was July of 2013 that I actually got the name Hawke Media, but I didn't really turn it into a business until the beginning of 2014.
Oh, okay. Uh, okay. And like on the way, what were some of the initial lessons that you learned the hard way?
Um, I'd say, as the owner of a business, you're going to deal with the biggest problems of the business, whatever those may be at the time. And I remember like a month in, I had an employee that left, just literally he went to Hawaii to marry a girl he had met over the weekend, like just completely flaked on all his work. My clients were angry. We didn't know what to do. We were only 5 people. And it's funny because at the time, it felt like my entire world was collapsing. And I actually got advice from my father. I called him and I told the story very quickly here, but I told him a 5-minute version of that story of how big it is and this happened and that happened and everything. And after talking for 5 minutes, his response was, yeah, that happens all the time. Anyways, I got to run, talk to you later, and hangs up on me. So it was like, oh, so like the biggest lesson I've learned with all of this is like, as the owner of a business, you're going to deal with problems all the time. And now if one of my employees took off to Hawaii to go marry someone and flaked on their work, it'd be like, all right, well, they're fired. Like, congratulations, but like, you can't just no show your work for a week. So goodbye. And we're moving on. Like, it wouldn't be a big deal, but the problems get bigger and bigger. And you also get more used to dealing with these things. So when you're dealing with a quote unquote crisis, once you've done it, dealt with something similar a few times, you're like, yeah, you do this, this, this. We see how it works out, whatever. Like, you start to realize that this is what everyone's dealing with as business owners.
Yeah. Also, like off the record, I wanted to ask you, do you only do companies or you all do branding and marketing for influencers and famous personalities as well?
Not really. I mean, we've done it,
Mhm.
but the goal of our how we work is we want to make sure that our work can be tied to revenue growth. So unless we
Okay.
can really focus on, if we're going to brand an individual, it's like, well, what is that going to drive that's going to drive revenue? And that's where we have challenges sometimes because sometimes it's not. So
Mm-hmm. Okay. So since y'all mainly deal with brands and y'all have partnered with some of the big brands like Red Bull, and marketing is a very core perspective of all these brands. It's a very key part of their business. So do y'all have any strategic plan to marketing products, or do y'all go with what the company is? How does that entire thing work? Is there any customization or any
oh yeah.
go-to option for you?
Yeah, it's funny. We're putting out a book in a month, so it just went on
Mhm.
pre-sale on Amazon and everything called the Hawk Method, and it's our
Okay.
marketing methodology around how we
Mhm.
look at it. So there's a framework and a way that we look at the overall marketing strategy, but then it's individualized from there depending on how the
Yeah.
company fits into that framework and what's important, what they're missing, et cetera.
Yeah. Also, like as a marketing firm, I'm sure y'all go forward with some ideas and then the company counters it back. So how do y'all find the middle ground in situations like that?
Yeah, good question. The most important, most difficult part of being a marketing agency is communicating with clients. And so it's collaborating, communicating. Hopefully there is a right answer. And a lot of times, we get into the conversation with clients sometimes where it's like, we can do it your way, but then you can't hold us to the result. It's that's the issue that comes up there is like, sure, if you disagree with how we're going to do this, that's fine, but then you can't get angry at us if it doesn't work. So if you can, if you let us control the actual marketing, which again, we've run over 3,500 brands at this point. Like when we're talking about how to do something, generally we're talking to someone that's maybe their first or second company. There's very
Yeah.
few people that have seen as much growth and as much marketing as we have. And still, some people have ego and push back. And at some point you try to say, hey, listen, we're doing this. This is why. We explain it to them. But if they're still pushing back and want to do it their way, we're like, okay, we can, because they are the boss at the end of the day, but we have to let them own the result then.
Okay. Also, like 3,500 is a big number, and you all have successfully marketed for so many brands. But was there any marketing failure with any of these companies or anything that didn't go as you expect?
Oh yeah, several times. I mean, many times I should say, but trying to think of a good example. What would be something that didn't go as expected? Uh, I don't have any. I mean, the most of the time, the stuff that doesn't go well long before it's like the campaign. So once in a
Yeah.
while you deal with a campaign that doesn't go well, but that's actually rare for us. It's more, you know,
Mhm.
it's more like an expectation thing. Like someone launching a campaign on Facebook with a brand new
Yeah.
company, and in a month they expected to be rich, and being like,
Mhm.
why didn't I
Yeah.
make a bunch of money? Like it's usually those kind of things that we have problems with more than like a true campaign falling flat.
Okay.
Because we're so iterative, we usually can change fast enough to get it going. Um, yeah, and then technical problems. We'll build a website sometimes, and there'll be a glitch, and we'll have to fix that. Those kind of things, but nothing that's like we launched a huge campaign, because we don't really work that way. We're so iterative that it's not like we go all in on something without any testing and hope that it works.
Mhm. Also, considering you started Hawk Media before the entire digital marketing wave, especially in the marketing industry and as a marketing agency, what differences have taken place ever since this whole digital marketing thing has taken over?
Yeah, I'd say for the past, decade, you've been able to run Facebook or Google ads and make money that way, where it's like you can just build a whole business off just those. And I think the iOS 14 changes this year or last year, and some other, new changes online, and the rush to be online because of COVID made it more competitive. And I think people are having to be more creative. Like there was the rise of the Facebook agency where people have built massive, 8-figure businesses just running Facebook ads for companies. And like that's a piece of our business, but it's never been the core of our business. And so the idea that that's everything a company does is kind of crazy, that it's one marketing channel. So I think we're going to see what we've seen is, a lot of companies be able to live off just those channels. I think that's going to change, and it's going to have to be more of a holistic approach.
Okay. Also, now coming to my next question, marketing is all about scaling up numbers, bringing those Salesforce reports high. But when you look at Hawk Media, like how did you scale up at your own company, be it in terms of the brands you worked or the employees starting off with five, now you all are at a four-digit number, I believe, in terms of employees. So, how did you scale up? How did that happen? If you can explain to us, like in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's just drinking our own punch. Our job is to grow other businesses. We better be able to know how to grow ourselves. It's something that comes up when I hear it, because we were the small one, now we're the big one in terms of our industry. And I hear smaller agencies say, well, they're big. They you shouldn't work with them. They're too big for your company. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. Work with a partner to grow your business that doesn't know how to grow their own. Like that always
Yeah.
baffled me. So I felt like it was, and I talked to our like, and being transparent, I talked to our marketing to this day, like, hey, people judge our marketing, not just should I hire these people, but how good are they? So should I hire these people? Like it's a lot more important for us to be good at marketing than almost any other business out there, because our ability to market ourselves is judged whether someone should work with us. So
Yeah.
I've just always made that part of one of our priorities is we have to be good at marketing ourselves because that's what we're selling, is that we have the ability to do so.
Mm-hmm. That's lovely. Also, like looking at all the successes, you've been at the top on all the lists related to business and business owners. But back at Hawk Media, was there any low phase or any challenge that you had to overcome?
Yeah, many. There's always challenges. Just to be blunt, like that's the fallacy of like business ownership, is that you just like you get everything handled and now it just works. Like there's no
Uh-huh.
business on the planet that doesn't deal with challenges all the time, whether it's, you're growing too fast and you got to hire people, you're growing too slow and you've got to figure out finances, or you've got an angry client, an angry employee, you made the wrong decision on something and now you have to fix it, your system's broke, like it could be a list of a billion things, but there's always going to be challenges.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, like, can you take us through how a day in the CEO of Hockey Media look like?
Yeah, intentionally no day looks the same. Like I like variety, so I don't really have like I have some consistency in the sense of like I spend about a third my time internally with the executive team strategizing, figuring out how to make things better in the business. I spend about a third my time on expansion and growth, whether it's buying other agencies or figuring out ways that we can expand the business, expand our revenue streams, et cetera, our venture fund, our capital
Yeah.
arm where we're doing debt financing for our clients, things like that. And then about a third of the time on promotional, being on podcasts, writing the book, going out and speaking, all the things that help drive the brand. And so, but that changes all the time in terms of like the ratios stays similar over time, but every day is a different issue on the strategy side. Every day is a different expansion initiative. Every day is a different way of promoting the brand, that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. And the next question is, now that you look back at all these years you worked at Hockey and for Hockey, what's one key lesson that you've learned throughout these years?
It's one key lesson. That no one's that smart. Like that we
Mm-hmm.
assume that all these CEOs are brilliant people that figured it out. And it's like, no, I mean, don't get me wrong, you have to be smart enough, and then you have to be hardworking enough, but timing is really what gives people success. It's just getting lucky. And like they went for it. Like you have to actually go for it for that luck to hit. So as
Yeah.
my dad used to put it, swing the bat. Like you have to just try. And baseball reference, like if you don't swing for the ball, you're not going to hit it. So you got to at least try.
Mhm.
But then you actually, to connect, to actually have something happen, a lot of luck is involved. So when you see these super successful people, understanding that a lot of luck drove them to where they are kind of levels the
Yeah.
playing field in the sense of like, they're celebrated. And don't get me wrong, there's exceptions. Like Elon Musk, after all the things he's built, seems to be more good than lucky. But I'd say Jeff Bezos is lucky, and he's smart and he's built an incredible company, but he also timed things perfectly right, picked the right thing. He couldn't have, he was building a book company. He didn't predict what Amazon would be years later. He never, at some point he got that vision, but it took a while. And it had to do with, the rise of e-com and the rise of internet. And so I would say, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of skill along the way, but the level of success you are has a lot to do with luck. And so when I see people that are super successful, that's always in the back of my mind. Is like, congratulations, good for you, but it's not. I don't put them on a pedestal either.
Mm-hmm. Also, now that looking at a place where you are, your brand is super successful. Back when you started it, did you imagine it to reach where it is today?
I'd say no. And it's funny because I never doubted that I'd be successful. Like I always had this like unreasonable confidence that I'd be some level of success, but I never put a value on that. I never said like that means I'm going to have this much money or this type of success or this size company. I just figured that I'd be okay. And so I had the first 4 years laid out of Hawk, but I didn't have anything past that. And so once I hit year 4, I actually kind of looked up with my partner and was like, now what? Like we got to where we wanted to go. And it was, now we're 4 times the size of when we were then. And I was like, I don't know what is next. Let's figure this out. And now I have a lot bigger vision of what I want to build, but it took a long time to develop that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, like work perspective and on your personal endeavors, like your book, where what is in the pipeline for you?
Yeah, we're closing our second fund, venture fund. So that's scaled a lot and that's gone very well. We're working on opening overseas. We're working on the UK. We're working on China. We're working on Singapore. We're working on the Philippines. So we're building, and we already opened in Canada, which is not overseas, but still international for us. So expanding pretty rapidly. We're trying to grow the business, a lot more. We'll probably triple in the next 2 years is kind of the goal here. So growing fast. And what else are we doing? Yeah, and the book launch has been a lot of focus right now because we think that that can be a big driver. We're getting it in a bunch of different universities, and it really, so our mission, going back to it, is accessibility to great marketing for everyone. And we thought, why not make this more accessible and put up a $15 book that allows people to learn our entire methodology, because we know there's a lot of expertise and a lot of time that it takes to do this, and we're comfortable sharing that with the world, and we want to share it with all our clients. Or we also, it's a great tool for our employees. So the book became a really big focus. When that's done, we'll be rolling into our third e-commerce week, which is a partnership with the city of LA, Los Angeles. And we're expecting 10,000 people in September. So we already started, but we're working on that plan as well.
That's lovely. Also, like with expanding into different countries, don't you think understanding the culture and market trend would be a challenge? If yes, how are you preparing to combat with that?
Yeah, a few ways. One, I spend time in all these places, so try to understand it. That doesn't mean it's perfect, but it does. It's important to go visit and to spend some time and understand. I've done a lot of traveling, so I think part of it is just understanding how cultures can be different is a big part, because every culture is different, and then also having a local partner. So we have people that are local that are in that culture. We have to find someone that understands American culture and their culture as the leader, and that becomes part of it. But and there's nuance, but it hasn't been that big of a challenge yet.
Okay. So on that note, we come to the end of this interview. Thank you so much for taking time off. It was great talking to you.
Of course.
And before we leave, would you like to end this with a message?
Yeah, just don't be afraid to go after what you want to do. Like, I think everybody builds these assumptions. One of my favorite things that I hear is that how risky it is to be an entrepreneur, and it's like, it's just as risky to get a job. Like, you could come in and your boss is angry one day and they just fire you, or they make a mistake themselves and can't afford you. Like, there's risk in everything. And so if you want to be an entrepreneur, the other side is, I mentioned this several times, also know that you're dealing with problems day in, day out forever if you choose to be an entrepreneur. So be ready for that. It's not all glamorous, but whatever it is, that dream is, also be okay with if you want to just get a job. Like, that's totally cool too. There's ways to go both ways, but I'd say listen to yourself and don't give yourself like sort of the negative statements of why something won't work, and really look at why it will.
Okay. So thank you so much. And on that note, we complete the interview. So, guys, hope you all enjoyed this interview. And for many such interviews, follow us. You can follow all of Eric's social media handles will be linked below, and you can follow him and his journey as well. Thank you.